Welcome back to Stoic Wisdom. Imagine standing in a vast storm. The winds rage, the rain lashes your skin, and yet you remain still, unshaken. Why? Because you know where you end and the storm begins. You do not surrender your soul to the chaos outside you. This, precisely, is how a woman must stand in her relationships. A woman must never hand over her peace, her dignity, or her destiny to any man, no matter how fierce the winds of emotion may blow. A wise woman, much like a Stoic, knows the boundaries of her own soul. She protects her values. She preserves her reason. She refuses to live as a shadow of another's will. For if you abandon yourself to please another, you betray the only thing truly within your control, your character. Let me now share with you 6 fundamental principles, a code of honor, that every woman must remember when standing at the gates of love, commitment, and human connection. A woman's principles and values are the foundation of her character, the essence of who she is when everything external falls away. To abandon those principles in order to gain a man's approval is to begin a slow erosion of the self, a betrayal not just of ideals but of identity. When a woman compromises what she knows to be right and true merely to be accepted or loved, she enters a dangerous territory where self-respect is gradually traded for fleeting validation. Approval gained through sacrifice of integrity is never stable. It demands constant submission, ever deeper concessions, and ultimately leads to resentment, both toward the man and toward herself. True connection, true love, is built upon mutual respect for one another's values, not on the expectation that one will diminish herself for the comfort or preference of the other. A relationship that demands the abandonment of deeply held principles is a relationship built on manipulation, not partnership. The Stoics taught that what is within our control, our reasoned choice, our moral compass, must be guarded more fiercely than anything else. When a woman gives that away for approval, she places herself at the mercy of forces outside herself, which will inevitably shift and betray. Furthermore, a woman who changes herself fundamentally to secure affection will never know if she is truly loved for who she is. She will live in quiet anxiety, fearful that the real parts of her, the ones she hid or discarded, would have been rejected. It is better to be rejected for standing firm in truth than to be embraced for wearing a mask. In the end, peace is found, not in the approval of others, but in the deep knowledge that you remained faithful to yourself, no matter the temptation to betray your soul for fleeting acceptance. Respect is not something that can be demanded or begged for. It is earned through steadfastness, integrity, and the quiet strength of self-respect. When a woman finds herself pleading for a man's respect, she has already entered into an unequal dynamic that corrodes her dignity and peace. Stoic philosophy teaches us to value only that which lies within our control and the respect of another. Person is not one of those things. What is within our control is our own character, our own conduct, and our own commitment to virtue. The moment a woman feels she must ask, bargain, or plead for the basic respect that any human being deserves, she should recognize that she stands in dangerous waters. True respect from a man arises naturally when he recognizes the strength, authenticity, and dignity within her. It is not something she can purchase with silence, sacrifice, or endless accommodation. To chase after it is to lose sight of the one thing that must be preserved above all else: her own self-respect. When a woman sacrifices her dignity in hopes of winning respect, she ends up losing both. A man who does not offer respect freely is not worthy of the place he occupies in her life. It is better to walk away and maintain one's self-worth than to stay and become a shadow of oneself, desperately hoping for crumbs of validation. The Stoic stands firm, knowing that true strength lies in maintaining one's standards regardless of the cost. To be respected, one must first respect oneself enough to refuse anything less. In this refusal, a woman embodies her highest self, unmoved by the opinions of others, anchored in her own worth, and committed to living in accordance with her highest principles. A woman should never abandon her dreams and ambitions for a man, no matter how strong the emotional bond may seem. In Stoicism, the pursuit of one's purpose is seen as a fundamental duty to oneself and to the greater order of life. To sacrifice one's personal path in the hopes of pleasing another is to betray the very essence of what makes life meaningful. When a woman sets aside her goals to serve the vision of someone else, she diminishes not only her potential, but also her spirit. A dream deferred in the name of love can slowly turn into resentment, bitterness, and a hollow sense of self. Life demands that each individual cultivate their talents and fulfill their destiny as best they can. It is not an act of selfishness, but one of responsibility. A woman must remember that her dreams are not optional ornaments to be discarded at the whims of affection. They are sacred duties. A man worthy of her companionship will recognize this and support her pursuits, rather than require her to diminish herself for his comfort or advancement. Relationships should be places where both individuals grow stronger, not where one is pruned back so that the other can flourish. When a woman betrays her ambitions for a man, she steps away from her own journey and into a shadow life, a life where she constantly looks back with regret at what could have been. The Stoic path advises us to be vigilant about the choices we make, ensuring that they are aligned with virtue and authenticity, not born from fear or the desire to please. True love should ignite a deeper pursuit of excellence, not an abandonment of it. To honor oneself is to remain loyal to one's calling, even when love tempts otherwise. A woman should never tolerate disrespect or mistreatment from a man, no matter how deeply she cares for him. In the Stoic tradition, the dignity of the individual is paramount. To accept cruelty, humiliation, or neglect is to allow one's self-respect to be eroded bit by bit, until what remains is a hollow shell of the person she once was. Enduring mistreatment does not build strength or prove loyalty. It only chains the soul to unnecessary suffering. A woman must remember that her value is inherent and does not depend on another's ability to recognize or honor it. Life will inevitably present trials and hardships, but unnecessary suffering, especially that inflicted by another human being, is not to be romanticized or accepted as fate. The Stoics taught that external circumstances, including the behaviors of others, are beyond our control. What we can control is our response to those circumstances. To endure abuse without protest is not a noble act. It is a betrayal of the very agency and reason that define our humanity. It is a form of silent self-sabotage, often fueled by fear, insecurity, or misplaced hope that the abuser will change. Respect is the foundation of any relationship worth having. Without it, love itself rots into something dangerous and destructive. A woman committed to a Stoic path understands that it is better to walk alone in truth than to stay bound to someone who dishonors her spirit. Courage is required to walk away from what is comfortable but toxic. Strength is required to stand firm in the face of loneliness rather than bend under the weight of mistreatment. She must choose to be loyal to her own integrity first and foremost, because without that, all other forms of loyalty become meaningless. A woman should never sacrifice her own dreams and ambitions solely to fit into a man's life. In Stoic philosophy, every individual has a duty to fulfill their unique purpose, their telos. To abandon one's own path in the hope of earning love or approval is to betray the divine spark of reason and potential placed within. Life demands that we become who we are capable of becoming, not that we diminish ourselves for the comfort of others. When a woman gives up her aspirations for the sake of someone else's desires, she builds a quiet resentment within her soul, a bitterness that eventually poisons the very relationship she tried to preserve. A Stoic understands that we are responsible for the cultivation of our own character and talents. No one else can live our lives for us, and no one else should dictate the course we follow. Love, when true and noble, is a partnership where both individuals rise together, encouraging and celebrating each other's growth. It is not a prison where one's wings must be clipped to make the other feel more secure. When a woman abandons her ambitions, she not only dims her own light but also denies the world the contributions she was meant to make. There is profound strength in pursuing one's calling, even in the face of opposition or misunderstanding. A woman should seek a life of virtue and excellence, not one of quiet regret. She must understand that a man who truly respects and loves her will support her growth, not fear it. To live a life dictated by another's insecurities is to live a life half-lived. Fidelity to one's highest self is the ultimate form of loyalty. And in the end, it is the only loyalty that can sustain any relationship built on mutual respect and admiration. A woman should never lose her sense of self-respect or dignity in her efforts to please a man. According to Stoic principles, self-respect is not negotiable. It is the cornerstone of a virtuous and meaningful life. No external attachment, no matter how deeply felt, should compel anyone to compromise their own moral compass or inherent worth. In the eyes of a Stoic, dignity is not something granted by others. It is something maintained within, an unshakable recognition of one's own value as a rational and moral being. When a woman forfeits her self-respect to gain approval, affection, or validation, she steps away from her inner fortress of strength. She places her happiness in the hands of another, a risky and ultimately unstable position. True inner peace comes from aligning one's actions with one's principles, not from bending to the ever-changing demands of another person. No relationship, however passionate or profound it may seem, can compensate for the loss of one's inner integrity. Without dignity, love becomes dependency. Without self-respect, affection curdles into resentment. Maintaining self-respect often requires setting firm boundaries, speaking uncomfortable truths, and being willing to walk away when those boundaries are violated. This is not an act of cruelty or pride, but one of profound courage and wisdom. A woman who honors herself teaches others how to treat her. In doing so, she upholds the natural law that each individual must govern themselves first, before seeking to unite with another. Stoicism teaches that we are sovereign beings. Losing oneself in the service of another's whims or neglecting one's own soul out of fear of loneliness is a betrayal of that sovereignty. In preserving her dignity, a woman not only honors herself but elevates the possibility of any relationship built upon truth, respect, and shared virtue. Each of these reminders is a shield. Each is a sword. Carry them with you as you walk through life, and remember, to live with honor is to live freely. And no love worth having will ever demand you surrender that which makes you whole.